Okay, we'll start class 2 on the molecular relationship. This time I'm going to give pretty much try to cover an overview of the whole thing during this class. As we talked about last week, one of the big differences between the molecular business and other businesses is how positions and employees are selected. So in a regular business, you have the guy who you call the boss, and he tells you what to do, and he makes all the decisions. And if the boss is replaced, he's replaced by somebody higher up than him. And this it's a little bit like a mini dictatorship, and the biggest advantage for free people is you're only stuck there usually 8 hours a day, where if you were a slave in the old days, you were a slave 24 hours a day. But here, a lot of people have jobs where they feel that they're kind of a slave. Now, just like in the old days, in the days of the Roman Empire, for instance, where slavery was common for all the races, there were good masters and bad masters. And so if you had a good master, you didn't mind being a slave that much. If you had a bad master, then it was miserable. And that's a little bit the way it is with businesses. If you have a business where your boss has total control over you, if he's a nice guy or lady, then it's not so bad. But if he's an ornery son of a gun, then he can make your life a living hell. And I've had some pretty bad bosses in my life, especially when I used to work on construction. I don't know what there is about construction, but the bosses in construction are often really some pretty low life characters, some of them. I had two bosses in particular. I remember that they half of the time I spent with them, they were shouting right in my face, you know. And so I had to learn to tune them out like they weren't even there. I visualized like they did not exist. And that kind of helped me endure these guys. One boss I had, he was always in my face, and he shouted at me so much that the people around us was entertained by it. And so then he'd come and shout in my face and then leave, and people around me would laugh because they thought that was really funny. Especially how I handled it. I just kind of tuned him out like the guy wasn't even there. But that's kind of an extreme situation. Normally, most bosses aren't that bad, but some of them can be. Now, in the molecular relationship, we get to pick our bosses. If you have a group of 12 people in your working group, and your boss gets elevated or leaves or whatever, then when he's replaced, you just get together and vote in who's going to be the new boss. So first of all, the group asks for a volunteer. And if, say, 3 people want to be the new foreman or boss or whatever, then they put their names forward and everybody votes on it. And the guy uh, with the most votes winds up getting the job. And then if he screws up and doesn't do a good job, sometimes you think somebody's going to do a good job and they really don't do a good job. Then somebody else can volunteer and say, hey, I think I can do a better job. I'd like to call an election. So you can call an election, and if the new guy gets more votes than the current boss, then he replaces the current boss. So this way the group, no leader will be perfect, but they'll have a lot higher quality leadership that everyone is happy with. Because often in a company, the guy that gets promoted to be the boss is often the guy that's least liked among the group. It's funny how that sometimes works. And often it's the guy that's kissing up to the guy above him with power to select, and maybe he's uh, so into that, trying to look good and putting on a good face and everything, that he's irritating all his coworkers and they don't like him, yet he winds up being their boss. And so a lot of these problems are nullified when the people concerned have power to elect those that are going to have authority over them. So the power, much of the power comes from the bottom up rather than the top down. Now in the molecular relationship, you have power going both directions, but in normal businesses, it goes one direction. It's almost all top down, but it is slowly changing. The employees are getting a little bit more power as we go along. And since I first wrote about the molecular business, there has been progress in the direction of the democracy in the business itself. So the next thing is hiring new employees. Say you're in a group and of say 12 people or however many people is working in the group. In the business, we don't have specific numbers. It's the number that's needed to do a job in your section. If you can wind up with the molecular numbers like 12 or 24, that would be great, but that wouldn't always be possible in the business. In the business, we're not looking to make connection with spiritual power, but to make take the principles that are effective in the molecular order and put them in the business. So if say somebody leaves your group or you need to hire an additional person, then normally it's done by your boss will decide who it is that gets hired. There's, he'll maybe go through with some applications, look them over, interview a couple people, and then he makes the decision. In the molecular group, the boss can make a recommendation. He could say, now I think Jones over here would be a good person, but because in the group, you are all going to be working with this guy. Before he actually gets hired, all the details about him is run by the group, and if possible, the applicants appear before the entire group of 12 or however 6 or however many is in that department, and they get to check him out and ask him questions. And if there's 3 applicants and that look good, then they'll vote as to who they want to be their co-worker to join them. And so they will actually vote on it, and this gives them more power to participate, and it'll also produce greater harmony because they have a say so, and they like attracts like, so they will bring in people that they feel comfortable with, making for a better working environment. Now, so any questions so far on that? One of the big problems with that people, that businesses have, is making employees feel involved. Because in a regular business, the guy goes to work and does his job and goes home, and oftentimes they don't do any more than they have to do. And but there's one type of worker that is super involved. If it's necessary to work 14 hours a day with no extra pay, he will work 14 hours a day. If it's necessary to sacrifice family time, interests, or whatever, he will do it. Who is that person? Who's that person that's willing to really sacrifice almost everything?
Small business owner.
The
Exactly
initiate.
right. Right. Small business owner. Small business. When you're starting up a business, uh, oftentimes people start up a business thinking it's going to be a piece of cake. This will give me more time. I'll start up my business and everything will be cool and I'll only have to work a couple hours a day. Well, when he starts it up, he finds he was totally wrong on that idea. Starts up his business, he finds out sometimes he has to work 14, 15, 16 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. Uh, he for maybe the first year or so, he hardly gets to take home any pay, and he sacrifices vacation times with his family. He sacrifices tremendously, many of these initial business owners. And why do they do this? Why do they sacrifice so much? When a regular employee of a business, you ask him to work an extra 10 minutes, he doesn't really want to. He says, well, are you going to pay me for it? And so what's the difference? What's the difference between the motivation of the small business owner and the employee just getting a wage? Why is a small business owner so much more motivated?
He's got skin in the game.
Right, right. He's the owner. He's responsible for it. And he's responsible for the whole shebang. And so doesn't it make sense? If we can create a business where the employees feel more responsible, then like the small business owner does, then they will become much more dedicated, much more efficient, and make the business more successful. So the question is how we can do this. Part of it we've already talked about, which is we give them power to make decisions as to who's going to be their boss, make decisions as to who's going to be their co-workers, and so they get more involved that way. But so they have more voting authority, but also um, it's how they get paid. How they get paid. And so one of the ways that the molecular business will pay them will be in stock. So they, once they're paid in stock and they have their part ownership in the company, they become motivated and somewhat like the small business person. And also, if their salary goes up and down depending on the success of the company, then they're more motivated to make the business successful, like the small business owner. Small business owner, if his business is successful, he makes more money. If it's not successful, he makes less money. The employee, though, if the business is more successful, he still makes the same amount. If it's not doing very good, he still makes the same amount. He's on a salary. Okay, so he's not nearly as motivated. He doesn't have as much uh, investment in there. But in the molecular business, um, the uh, the salary and the stock you receive is determined by how successful the business is. Now, how the people get paid is interesting. The way they'll get paid is everybody, as far as payment goes for their salary, gets the same salary from the janitor to the president of the company. They all make the same amount. And uh, there's, this is, an ideal situation that people have talked about, but nobody's really implemented. There's one business in Washington where a guy did this, but and he's struggled with it. But the problem is that he hasn't implemented the other parts of the molecular business. But people have kind of dabbled in this idea. The big objection to this is, well, there's a number of objections to the paying them all the same. First of all, is well, people won't go for it. You get a manager, you need to pay him more, or else you cannot get a good manager. Okay. Well, the fact that great people can be taken from a pool of just ordinary people, so to speak, because you get a group of, say, 100 ordinary people. They're all not going to be ordinary. There's people with a lot of potential that just haven't had the opportunity to shine. And this is exemplified in multi-level businesses. If you've ever checked into a multi-level, almost everybody joins a multi-level to begin with is a person that hasn't been that successful. But then among the people that join, there's always a handful that are very successful, and they wind up managing their downlines, which are often composed of hundreds of people. And many of these people manage their downlines very well, even though when they joined, they had no training, no expertise, no nothing except some good common sense. And they were able to make their downline successful, and they manage it very well. And what these multi-levels have shown us is that good managers can be manifested out of just ordinary people coming together and making a business successful. And this is what goes over the heads of the business world to a great degree, is how much intelligence there is among the rank and file. Among the rank and file, there is a lot of potential intelligence and ability that is not developed. And what they look for is, well, they're going to pay this guy a couple $1 million a year, so they don't want to lose. So they want somebody with a proven track record. Whereas in a molecular business, you can get somebody that can turn into a great manager, and just because he loves the job and happy where he is. Okay, so everybody gets the same take-home pay unless they work overtime. If they work overtime, they get additional bonus. But otherwise, everybody gets the same take-home pay. But in addition to the take-home pay, they get paid in stock. Now, in this world that we live in, we still need an incentive. And this is why complete equality, or especially forced equality, hasn't worked, because it takes away incentive. In all the communist countries where they've tried to make this work, they haven't been able to make equality work because it's forced. And they don't give people incentive. If we were perfect human beings, we may not need incentive. Just the incentive may be that we're identified with our coworkers, and we want them to succeed, and we want the company to succeed. But that's not enough in our current society. People need incentive. So for incentives, we pay the people in stock. And everybody gets a certain amount of stock, from the janitor to the president of the company. But as a person gets more responsible positions, he will get paid in more stock. But here's the key. He he can't cash in the stock except for certain reasons. He keeps the stock in the company. So even though the president of the company gets paid in more stock than the janitor, it stays in the company to benefit the company, which benefits the janitor as well as everybody else. And he can only withdraw the stock on certain conditions. Okay. First of all, if he retires. Once he retires, then he can take his stock out and turn it into cash, do whatever he wants with it, or he can keep it in there. Okay. Second is payment of child support. We would always want to encourage all employees to be able to pay their child support. They can use their stock for that. Third, if they're either resigned or they are fired, then they can take their stock out. And third, if they want to make a donation to a nonprofit, they can cash in some stock and make a donation. And fifth is a financial crisis in their life, say they got a big hospital bill or something like that. Then they could appeal to be able to cash in some stock for a crisis of some kind. But the most interesting thing the stock can be used for, let's say Tyler over here is president of his division, and it's doing really good, and he's accumulated quite a bit of stock, and he's quite a ways from retiring or anything, so he can't really cash it in. He keeps it in the company. There is one way for him to use that stock in his current situation. If he wants to branch out and expand the molecular business and create a separate business of which he will be the owner and link it to the original molecular business. In this case, if he wants to create some business that can be linked to the molecular business, he can cash in his stock and invest in it. And maybe he finds 3 or 4 other guys that wants to go in with him and start this business, and they could cash in their stock too. And so they start this new business linked to the original molecular business. And what this does, even though the company loses some of its stock because it's cashed in, it's still invested in the molecular business because it expands the molecular business. And if Tyler winds up succeeding, then everybody's going to benefit as time goes on. So the stock then will stay in the company a lot more than the stock will stay in a regular company. And this gives the company additional financial security. Okay. So another great part about having this system of payment is people will think that well, the wage would be too low. Maybe people can't live on it. But if the business is successful and efficient, if it's, and I think it would be, well, I've explained this to people that work for a large company, and they said, if these principles you're talking about were applied in our company, we'd probably make twice as much money. So if the molecular business is successful, the more successful it is, the higher the take-home wage will be for each employee. So if the take-home wage is, say, just 25% higher than other competitive businesses, you'll have all kinds of people wanting to sign up to work for the molecular business over a non-molecular business. So the wage should be above average. It's not enough to get rich on, but it's enough to live comfortably on. And you know, most people, they just want to live comfortably. And statistics show they did a study as to wealth and happiness. And they found out that wealth is only connected to happiness up to the degree where you have your necessities taken care of. If you don't have your necessities taken care of, then lack of money takes away from your happiness, okay? But once you get to the point where you're not worried about food, clothing, housing, the basic necessities of life, where you're not worried about these things, then additional money coming in, even if you make millions, it doesn't increase happiness that much. So the studies show that if you lack the basics, money does increase happiness if it helps give you the basics. But once you have the basics covered, so you're not worried about surviving, then additional money doesn't bring much additional happiness, doesn't make that much difference. So what brings, after you get the basics taken care of, if you have a good starting salary and above average for everybody in the group, then you have all the ingredients necessary for basic happiness. Your happiness then is motivated by other things than making lots of money. Now, the guy that in Washington that is did this equal salary, he's taken the same salary as everybody else, even though he's the owner. And I believe it was about 5 years ago he started doing this, and it was like 75,000 a year. So everybody had a pretty decent salary. That'd probably be like 90,000 a year in today's money. So
Didn't that actually cause problems with his
he
business?
did have problems with it because, and all the problems I saw was in connection to not being molecular. Because for one thing, he took an existing company and tried to switch it over, and his brother was angry about that and giving him all kinds of hassle about it. And whereas a molecular business pretty much needs to be started from scratch, because if you try to take an existing business and just do this one thing, of paying everyone equally, then all the managers in it's going to be upset and quit. So it's just really difficult to do. The same thing about authority. You take the power away from the top and give it to the bottom, the top guys won't be happy. And who governs a regular business? It's the guys on top. And so they aren't going to sacrifice. But if you begin a business from scratch, unlike this guy that had the problems, and you offer a really nice wage, which is 30–40% above what's average in the community, you'll have plenty of people applying. And then from those applying, will gravitate to the manager type positions and the positions of authority, and they will be selected by democracy. And so the first molecular businesses will have to be started by pretty much from the ground up, because converting businesses over won't work at first. Now, if we have the situation where the molecular business started very successful and others start up, and we have a whole bunch of them starting up, and the molecular businesses do much better than the non-molecular, and we start putting the non-molecular ones out of business, then we would have the situation where people would say, hey, we need to convert our business to molecular. Heck if the managers are upset or not. And so if we reached a point where a significant portion of the country was molecular, then tremendous pressure would be placed upon the others to adopt the same things. This is already happening to a degree. There's more and more employee-owned businesses starting up around the country, and they're doing very well. We have now employee-owned is just one of the molecular principles applied, and it's working very good. We have a very successful one headquartered here in Boise called Winco Foods. And their prices are about 20% lower than all the other stores in the area. And they're very efficient. The employees are happy, and also they do pay their employees some stock. And they don't all get the same wage or anything, but every employee there that's been there a while is part owner, and they feel all the employees I've talked to are very happy about working there, and they're quite satisfied, and it's very efficient, and they're doing very well applying these molecular concepts. So the wage will not be like a low wage, but now there's a big advantage on the wages. Is the wage will be determined by how successful the company is going, and there'll be participation from the ground up as to what that wage will be. If it looks like the company is doing well and they can give everybody a raise, then they'll vote on it, and they'll be shown how feasible it is, and the management will recommend maybe a certain raise. They say, we can afford this. We can afford giving us a $1 more an hour, or $100 extra a month, or whatever the salary is. And then they will vote on it. And if it goes through, then everybody gets a raise. But on the other hand, a big problem a lot of businesses have is we have financial downturns that occur about once every decade. And like in 2008, the financial crisis, a lot of businesses went out of business. Or during this crisis with the COVID, a lot of businesses had a lot of problems. That these things come up. When these businesses are under pressure, what happens is they can't afford to pay everybody the current wage. So what they do is they lay off a number of people. Whereas in the molecular business, everybody could share the problem and vote themselves a lower wage on a temporary basis until the company recovers. This way, the company can still have the cash it needs to survive, and everybody takes a cut in wages for a period of time until the crisis is over, and then they increase their wage back up. So this way, because everybody's involved, everybody's an owner, just like in a small business owner, if he has a downturn, he makes less money. If business is booming, he makes more money. But in a regular company, in a regular large company, if business is booming or they have a problem, they got to pay their employees the same, or they might get sued or something because their employees are not owners, and they need that they want that same income at least all the time. So in the molecular business, they can adjust it. So a molecular business would rarely go out of business because it's floatable, so to speak. The wages would go up when things are getting better. And if things get tight, instead of laying people off, everybody just takes a temporary cut in pay until the worst blow is over. Okay. Another criticism of the molecular business, or people paying people the same, is they say, well, how sometimes we really need skilled person. Let's say we need to hire a medical doctor to be on staff, and we can't find one that will work for just stock and minimal cash or minimal salary. So how are we going to hire this doctor? In this case, we could hire him like we would hire a contractor, so to speak. Like in your home, if you want a plumber, you don't really hire him as a permanent employee. You just you hire him as a contractor. He comes and does the job, and you pay him whatever he charges. And some people, for really skilled labor that we can't get any other way, we would hire them as contractors. And then when they see how happy everybody is working there, he might want to go molecular and take the salary and the rest of his income in stock. And then the money from the stock stays in the company for a long period of time, giving the company a tremendous financial advantage. So you got quite a few good incentives. You got the molecular business will supply a decent wage, supply decent security, because once you're in there, you would be like family. And we would do everything we can to keep all of our employees together so that they will never lose their job. Now, once in a while, even a molecular business could fail, and maybe some people would lose their jobs, but it should be a rare occasion, because it would be something that wouldn't happen that often. We would normally do everything we could to keep everybody together. The other advantage is the ownership. You're paid, part of your payment is in stock, so you are a part owner, and the higher you get in the company, the more ownership you have and the more responsible you feel. And this gives the person incentive to double up his dedication to the company. Authority, the person at the bottom just coming in the company all has some authority, and he gets to vote on different things, and so he feels like he's in a family. And the power to initiate. You can initiate any time you want. And what's interesting about a molecular business, let's say it's got 1,000 employees. And Maria here, she just joins the molecular business, and she's really a gung-ho go-getter, okay? And she's in a department run by 12 people. And she looks at her boss and she thinks, I could do a better job than this boss. So she calls for a vote, and she gets voted in to be the boss, and the boss takes her place and she takes the boss's place. Okay. Now there's say half a dozen divisions with a boss over half a dozen divisions. So Maria now checks out her new boss, and she thinks, you know, this my new boss, I think I'm smarter than he is, so I think I'll challenge him. So but first of all, she has to work there a little bit, and she proves herself, and she makes friends with the other 5 people involved, and they begin to trust her and they like her. And after, say, 6 months or so, she thinks, I think I have enough gravitas to make the challenge. So she calls for a vote and makes the challenge, and everybody likes her. So they vote her in, and now she's the boss over 6 divisions of 12, 72 people. She's over now. Okay. And she did that in just a few months time period, just because she's a person of leadership and skill. That's obvious. Okay. Now there's another boss over her still, and he's over 10 divisions. Okay. And Maria studies him and thinks, you know, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. I think I could actually handle this better than he does. So she bides her time, waits for the right opportunity. And when she gets the trust of other bosses, she challenges the new boss. And she gets the most votes. And so she's now over 720 people. And then next, she eyes the president of the whole company. And she thinks, I think I could do a better job than he does. So after a period of time, she could challenge the president of the company and say, and if she gets the most votes, she could be now the president of the company, and she just joined a couple years ago. So the great part about this is, like they say, cream rises to the top. So Maria, because she has all this ability, she rises to the top very quickly, because it was obvious to everybody that she had these leadership skills. And a person with obvious leadership skills in a molecular company could rise up very quickly. Whereas in a regular company, it takes 20 years to go anywhere, just about. So you don't normally rise very quickly in a regular company if you start at the bottom. Not unless you've proven you're a good manager in another company, and then they'll pay you a couple $1 million to come over. I'm sure there's lots of people who'd like to hire Tim Cook from Apple to come manage their company, but they'd have to pay him millions and millions of dollars for he'd take them up on that. Whereas, yeah.
JJ, excuse me, speaking, because you mentioned Apple, did you know that Apple's employees do own stock in the company? It's a profit sharing business.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons it's successful too.
Right,
and that's I wrote this, when did I write? About 30, 40 years ago, I come up with this idea. And since that time, a lot of these principles have been incorporated a lot more than they were when this was originally created. This is where evolution is going. And we're either going to go gradually into the molecular business, one step at a time, or somebody's going to implement all the principles in it and make a giant leap that will bring us into it. Now, one of the advantages of starting a molecular business is that you can't just start a small plumbing business and make it molecular, or used car salesman or a furniture store or something like this. It has to be started with a fairly substantial investment, unfortunately. You probably need you need a certain type of business to really make it work. Now, if we could take any big business like Apple or IBM or anybody like that, it could be turned into a molecular business if the people would cooperate, but you know, that's not going to happen. But a business that is molecular has to be started, like I say, from bottom up. Now, Stacy said he had an idea for the molecular business. Let's see if you want to share that with us, Stacy. We'll examine it and see how feasible it is.
Okay, that sounds great. Let me get my notes here. For one thing, this will fit all the criteria that you talked about and that you've written about in the molecular molecular business. It's a business company will start from the ground up using these pixels or space frames, I rather call them, that Rick's come up with. Now, these space frames, when put together, they're very, very strong. I'm not going to get into building cities or anything like that. Let's just go a simple what he can do with this, or what we can do.
Could you use them for building
Because
houses?
everybody would be interested. It could be done for building houses. You could build dog houses. You could build structures. You could build buildings. I know I've got I think it's a 20 by 20. I've got several outbuildings, but these are stronger than any metal building, stronger than any wood building. Let's just say you built a 20 by 20. Okay, and if later down the road you want to move this, all you got to do is deflate it, pick it up, and move it. You could probably put a 20 by 20 building up. It would weigh less than 200 pounds. And as Rick and I was talking about one structure that I think it was a canoe that was built that hold 2 people, and it only weighs about 120 pounds, could be carried by 2 people. But if you put that down on a floating platform, it would actually support 15,000 pounds. That's how solid and strong these space frames are. But no, so we would be starting out with a product that's really in demand. These new type of products people are looking for, companies are looking for. They're inflatable, they can take down quick, they're maneuverable. And we would have within our company, we've got all the technical support. We have these, you know, it would be up to you to start out saying who's going to be president, vice president, secretary, whatever, that doesn't matter, or they can be voted in if you wanted it to. But everybody starts out the same with the stock, just like you were saying. We have a product that's in need right now.
Now, are these modules, are these the same thing Rick's been telling us about?
Yes, exactly.
No. Oh, okay.
Same thing, but I'm scaling it down. Yeah, most of his ideas were done on structure of water, but it was when we started talking about this, bringing this idea up, he didn't have time to change all that to put it on land.
Yeah, you're on the right track here, because that's one of the type of companies that would work well. Being molecular would be some type of manufacturing.
Right.
So if we can find a product to manufacture that is sellable and in demand and unique or whatever, that would be an ideal one. So you're on the right track and you're thinking there.
Okay, and also to go along with this is that it can branch out not just by us manufacturing the product and selling it, but we could also down the road service it. We could build the structures that they want, you know, or companies can buy these space frames and actually put them up themselves, or we can do it. We could form a part of the company that would be a service. It fits into any type of say elasticity we want with the company. We can build, service, we can advise, all the way down the line with it. Like I said, these structures would even be for recovering land, or for land recovery.
Okay, well, you're on the right track there, Stacy. And another type of business that would be good for molecular would be farming. It'd be good for several reasons if we were all involved in a large farm, large, preferably organic, in my opinion. Then we would also have insurance. If everything fell apart, we had an economic collapse, if we had a molecular business that was a large farm,
Here's
it
my
would be
illustration.
like an insurance policy for us. Yeah.
Here's my illustration of a pixel farm.
Oh, yeah? Floating on the ocean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you can build a little tiny triangle, or you could build. You know, there's no limit to the scale that you can build with this principle. And I just wanted to include that in the chat section of the Zoom meeting here, I put the web address for a document that I created. It's illustrated. It's the Pneumatic crystal lattice principle, and it's if anybody want to learn more about what and how useful it is and all, you know, down the line it might be an ideal company to start up, because there aren't that many other companies that are building inflatables, and it's a whole new architecture out there just waiting for somebody to make something out of it. So
Yeah.
you know, check it out, check out the principles, and you know, maybe you'll see how you might fit into it, how we all might. I'm perfectly willing. You know, I told them, I don't put patents on this because I made it available for the world. That's my gift. And you know, but you can still profit off of these things. One thing is for sure, the population of the world is keep growing. We're going to need places to put these people. And you know, according to some, the oceans keep rising too. So you know, we're getting less and less land. With these pixel modules, you could go with a truck full of these things to the middle of the Sahara Desert and build a town in one day.
Yeah.
You know, we could provide housing for the, you know, shelter for the people on Earth. That would be a pretty interesting thing for a business to get started with. And you know, it's like, wow, the potential for success is amazing.
Well, you know what you ought to do, Rick, is maybe take the writings about the molecular business along with your idea and try to get some circulation on the web. Maybe get somebody with some bucks interested. Yeah, Joshua, do you have something?
Rick, is the idea public domain, or did you just not patent it?
Basically, what I did was there was originally a patent by Buckminster Fuller for the space frame, and but their frames were made out of metal or wood or whatever. They had weight to them and they added up. But even still, you could put a space frame, you could make an entire roof of a factory out of one space frame and not require any center columns to hold it up. They're very rigid. And I'm thinking, the only thing I could improve on is make it weigh less. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can make it out of balloons.
Well, the point I was going to make was, if your idea is an original invention and you didn't patent it, somebody else could theoretically patent it, and then it wouldn't be available for public use.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
So you would have to, if it is original, not just Buckminster
Well,
Fuller.
yeah, if we got going on this, we probably should patent it to not only to have control, but to
Yeah.
prevent somebody else having control.
Yeah, that was the thing about the original idea was from a metal or a hard substance. What Rick has got is like a vinyl. That's not patent yet, as far as we know. So that's something that the company would look into, you know. And as far as the name of the company, JJ can name it, or you guys can all vote on what you want named. And but looking into this patent, I don't think it's patent in this form, like plastic or not plastic, but vinyl.
You should make sure it goes into public domain or somebody patents it, because there'd be nothing to stop somebody else from patenting it and preventing you from using it. Or
Well,
anybody.
If the Chinese got a hold of it, they might really go crazy.
You can copyright the individual components that you create that these space frames would be made from.
That wouldn't be enough, though. It'd need to be actually patented to give you security, probably. Copyright isn't enough.
Well,
For,
But if you could release it as public domain,
I
you might have
released
to patent it and then release it as public domain. I'm not sure the process.
in this document that I just told you about, the principles that explains it, I included that I said I released this to the public domain. So whatever patentable thing there is about it, it's going to have to be a matter of copyright, individual components or
yeah,
something.
you know, yeah, what I'm unsure of, you might have to be able to, you might have to patent it first before you could put it in the public domain. Otherwise, it might be up for grabs, like Joshua said. That'd be something we have to probably get advice from an attorney.
We could do
on.
that.
Yeah. Whatever
Yeah,
the case, you know, this is headed the right direction, and to create the first molecular business will take a fairly substantial investment to do it right. We don't want to start one that's just on a shoestring type of thing with a small business or something like that. We want to start one with a substantial potential to it. And this is a possibility here. A large farm would be a possibility, or maybe just finding another product that we have a more efficient way of manufacturing and offering at a lower price. Even that's another possibility. But yeah, if Rick's product works as good as he tells us, it would definitely have high potential.
well, I have built these things on a kitchen table before.
Yeah.
Taken them outside and assembled them. I've done. My dad was in who's who of engineering, American engineers, and the day I showed him my first prototype, it blew his mind.
Really?
He was turning it over and over in his hands, and you could just see the smoke coming out of the top of his head. It's like, my son invented this. Wow, you know, it's like.
Have you ever submitted it to a patent search?
Well, the only thing I'm claiming as my own is that I came up with a document called the Pneumatic Crystal Lattice
Yeah.
Principles. And from there, I mean, okay, I claim authorship of that paper. Beyond that, it's like it's up for grabs. Anybody that thinks this is interesting, getting a foot into the future architecture and all that, it's like, hey, grab it and run. You know, it's like start a committee. I'll be on your committee. You know, I'll give you any kind of help I can as far as the engineering aspects of it. But I've been thinking about these things for a long time, and it's always been in connection with JJ and the keys of knowledge and the molecular group. You can't come up with a more molecular thing to produce.
Well, we'll keep throwing out this idea. I don't think anyone in the group here has enough cash to get it going, but there's people out there that are looking for investment. So maybe we'll eventually stumble across somebody. Okay, great participation here, and that's good. That's a good potential one. And so we will. It's time to close, and we will meet again next Sunday at 10 o'clock Sunday. And also don't forget World Invocation Day is at Wednesday at 13 minutes after 5 Mountain Standard Time in the morning. And so we will see you all next week.
Bye, everyone. Be well.